For the past month, we have been talking about how to start and grow a sustainable garden. Today, we will be shifting to all the things I put up for the winter and when I harvest them throughout the year. My goal is to give you some perspective on when things are ready and what you can look to incorporate into your new garden and homestead. Welcome to Simply Living Homestead, where we empower homesteaders and preserve traditions. I'm your host, Amanda Carlin, and I help homesteading families bring peace and order to their lives. My friend, are you overwhelmed with all the tasks on your homestead? Do you wish for a mentor to guide you through the tough moments each day? Then you've come to the right place. Together, we will learn to organize our homestead, love our families well, and walk in the peace of God. If you're ready to get unstuck from the constant feeling of overwhelm, then join us each week as we explore practical advice, inspiring stories, and heartfelt encouragement to help you thrive. Let's grow a sustainable, meaningful life together, both in the home and on the homestead. Welcome back to the homestead. Today we're going to be going over all the different fruits and vegetables that I put up for the winter, as well as when we eat them fresh. This will differ depending on what your family eats, but I'm hoping to give you some perspective on the different things that you can grow to supplement, your food intake from the store. This is a very long list. Please do not be overwhelmed by it, especially if you're just starting out. I encourage you to think about what you're already buying from the store or farmer's market and grow that. Most things are fairly simple and straightforward to grow. I don't feel like any one thing is particularly harder than the next. So if you have something that you know that you eat a lot of, that's probably the best thing to start with. Growing your own food is a skill that needs to be learned and exercised. If you're overwhelmed, just start with a couple of things and then you can add more next year. Let's start with springtime. I don't do a lot of preserving in the spring. It's dedicated to planning and setting up my year. And then what does grow in the spring, I get to eat fresh for the most part. There's a few things that we put up in the spring, but not a lot. This is going to be a shorter episode, I think. We're not going to touch a lot very deep into any of these. But I hope that this can give you some perspective on what you can and might enjoy growing in your new garden. So springtime. When spring starts, if you have the ability to, you've been gardening a little bit, you can start your own seeds. Springtime, early spring, in the Midwest, zone 5 where we're at, you're going to start kind of in March. You're going to start your seeds indoors, maybe in a really sunny window, under some plastic, or, with a grow light. We actually just got a light bulb, like it screws into the actual light bulb fixture, and we converted our entire back porch, which is like a little, I'm not even sure exactly what it is. It's like a room that's built off of the house. It's barely attached. But we actually screwed the light bulb in that room. And it's very bright in there. I don't enjoy walking down there. My eyes are kind of sensitive to light. And it's very bright. So we're going to see if that works very good for starting our seeds this year. Again, zone 5 where we're at, about the 1st of April, you can start planting some things outside. So these are things that are going to be frost hardy, things that aren't going to die just because a little frost hit them. Some things are more frost hardy than others. Some need lower temperatures to even germinate. Some of these things are like lettuce and radishes. Those are, at least in our family, those are the most common ones. Even if we don't get a whole lot of other things planted, we usually are planting lettuce and radishes. Lettuce is something that doesn't really grow super great in the middle of the summer. So you have to kind of get your fill of it in the springtime and the fall. So lettuce, you can plant head lettuce. We usually just kind of go with leaf. They produce for a long time until it starts getting hot. Radishes, Once you pull them, they're done. But you can plant quite a few of them and then use that same space to plant something else a little bit later because they don't take terribly long to grow. Radishes are one of those things that if they grow too big, they start getting hot or kind of bitter and like biting your tongue a little bit. So those are one of those things that you can plant and grow real easy, and you can start getting something fresh from the garden, but you're not going to be like taking up a ton of space in your garden that's going to then set dormant. So radishes can be frozen. I haven't done it. There's not enough people in my family that likes radishes. My husband and I actually don't like it, so it's more just my grandma did, and my mom does. And so there's like just a couple people who like to have just a couple radish sandwiches in the spring, and then they're kind of good for the year. So I haven't froze it, but I know that you can. Other things in the springtime, we've got broccoli. Broccoli, once it starts getting to this temperature, the ground temperature starts getting too warm, it goes to head, goes to seed, and the tight broccoli that you would eat starts really flowering out. So broccoli is something that if you can get the seed started way early and then get it out kind of at the beginning of April, again, where we're from, check your local zoning and stuff, but broccoli can work really well. Peas are a spring crop. Like, they will absolutely hold up to that frost, so get them in before first, final frost. The thing about peas for me is I'm not a huge fresh vegetable eater. I'm working on exercising that skill of really enjoying fresh, like crunchy vegetables. And peas kind of fall into that category for me. I find them really hard to blanch. I've tried it a time or two, and I just don't really enjoy the process, like the intensive amount of work of picking the peas, shelling the peas, blanching the peas, and freezing them, when it's one of those things that is really easy to get, even like the organic ones, for a pretty low amount of money from the store. So I tend to buy my peas, and I don't really grow peas that often, just because I don't enjoy them fresh. We are going to be growing some sugar snap peas, so you're not waiting for the peas inside the pod to get fully mature and developed. My husband really likes sugar snap peas, so we're going to be growing some of those this year and seeing how we like it, but peas are something to do in the spring. Beets, I just learned that you can actually plant a lot earlier than I ever thought you could. You can plant beets basically all year. They grow just fine in the warm, but apparently they grow fine in the spring too. So I'm going to be starting my beets a lot earlier this year. I think you can also kind of start your carrots pretty early. They're a little more susceptible to the frost. So if frost is something you're worried about, maybe wait till frost danger is mostly over to plant them, but you can kind of get them put in and get a summer crop of carrots if you want. Beets I can. I do can those. I'm not harvesting usually beets until June or July, which definitely doesn't feel like spring anymore to me, but I have them listed here because you're planting them. So now some of the things that I have left are essentially fruits. Asparagus isn't a fruit, but it is a perennial. I think I got that right. Hopefully I am correct that perennials are the things that grow every single year. Annuals are the ones that you plant annually. I think I am correct there. Probably should have looked that up before I started this episode, but you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Just, yell it out. It's good for engagement. So asparagus really starts popping up, and you can absolutely blanch and freeze that. People can it. A lot of times we're just eating it fresh, but our patch is just getting reestablished. We had a huge patch when I was growing up, and Asparagus lasts like 20-ish years, I think. And it was just kind of hitting the end of its 20 years, and it unfortunately the patch really declined, and so we're trying to start it back up again. Asparagus isn't something that me and my husband really like, but my cousins do. They grew up in Michigan, and asparagus is really big up there, and so I'm definitely trying to get my asparagus patch restarted for them. And then the fruits that come in the spring are strawberries. Usually you'll start getting strawberries in June, but there's like a few things that you have to do with your strawberry plants in April. We had them covered with straw all winter. So here, probably the beginning of April, I'll be pulling the straw off, and then you can start, doing stuff with your strawberries. Rhubarb is usually ready to be picked middle of May to the end of June, kind of depending on the year. If it gets super hot, they kind of quit. But the secret that I found for rhubarb in general is that if you keep picking it, unless it gets just ridiculously hot, you can kind of extend its season a little bit longer. Some people's like, oh, like we don't even get rhubarb past the second week of June. And I had people local tell me that. And I was like, no, we can often go to the end of July. So just keep picking it, keep it moving and growing, and it'll keep putting up new stalks. But we freeze our rhubarb to be used throughout the rest of the year in pies and crisps and all that sort of stuff. The other fruit that grows in spring is cherries. Again, you're probably picking them in June-ish. I think we do sour cherries. I would love to get a sweet cherry tree put in our orchard, but all in due time. Cherries are pitted and then we freeze them. I have canned them sometimes, I've canned a pie filling or two. Cherries are one of those things that it's just really easy to just freeze, but it kind of depends. You can do both. You can do one, other, doesn't really matter. If you have a lot of freezer space, I really like freezing them. I feel like they're less mushy, so that's like a big plus if you're freezing them. But you can do whatever your family needs. I have canned in previous years. I've canned a little bit more things sometimes because I had more canning storage than I had freezer storage. So it kind of just depends on what your family needs, what your living situation calls for, what you can do there. The way to freeze rhubarb and cherries and strawberries, like any of those berries and those fruits, is if you can get a cookie sheet. I put parchment paper down, wax paper, parchment paper, something to keep it off the bottom of the tray. But then just spread it out in kind of like a single layer and freeze that. And oftentimes you can do it in a couple of hours that they'll get firm, at least on the outside. But I have a habit of just leaving them for a couple of days and coming back to them. We've got enough cookie trays that we can do this. But you spread it all out, and then once they freeze, you can break them apart and then put them in a bag, and then put that bag in the freezer. Label it, date it when you put it in. That way, because you always think, well, no, but no, you won't. You will forget when you did it. So I usually month and year on the bag, what's in it, and then all of those frozen things don't stick together. So you have all of these individual berries, all these individual pieces, and it makes it really easy if you just need 2 cups for something that you're making, but you had it in a gallon bag. You've got 6 cups in there, and it makes it a lot easier to just get what you need and then put some back. It also works really well for my husband when he wants to take fruit. So whenever he wants to take fruit to work, he can go and pour just a little bit out, and that works really nice. All right, now we're moving on to summer. I spent a lot longer in spring than I thought I was going to, so maybe we can kind of work through summer a little faster. For vegetables, summer picking. So most of the planting, again, is done in spring. spring being kind of like May for the rest of these. And then you're going to start seeing a harvest July, August, the really warm, seasons is when you're going to start seeing these things be ready. And when they are ready, they start coming in with a vengeance, with a lot. And so July and August is often just really considered, this harvesting and preserving. Like, that is what you're doing, but you're doing it to feed your family for the rest of the year. And so that's something that, like, it's a project that you have to take on, but it's something that I think about a lot when I'm like, okay, yeah, this is what we need to focus on. This is what we need to do. So, vegetables that you're going to see start showing up in the summer. You're going to see them at your local farmers markets. You're going to see them in your garden. All right, you've got peppers. Basically, any pepper that you can think of. If you really like the spicy ones, grow those. I tend to grow quite a few bell peppers. I like banana peppers. I am a very mild, I don't do the spicy. But my husband was asking for some jalapenos, so maybe we'll put some of those out there too. So peppers show up. Your beets are ready. We start canning beets. Spinach. Spinach is a little bit warmer than your lettuce. It can bolt when it gets too warm. So this is like an early summer thing, is spinach, but it's not quite as frost hardy. So that's why spinach is here in the summer vegetables. Carrots, you can start harvesting in the summer. Green beans. Green beans is something my family eats a lot of. We put up bushels and bushels and bushels of green beans. Our family likes the bush beans. Depending on the space and how your garden is set up, pole beans might be better. Bush beans might be better. A lot of times you'll find people who have very strong opinions about green beans. They have a variety that they like. They have, a way of preserving it that they like. You can freeze them. You can can them. My family cans them only. We don't enjoy the frozen ones. They are a lot crisper. But if you kind of have an aversion to soggy or limp green beans, then maybe freezing them would be a better way for you to take advantage of that big push. Green beans, at least the variety of green beans that we do, you can get 4+ pickings out of them as long as you're keeping them watered and you're keeping them just like really cared for. They have to have water, and it can't be too ridiculously hot or they won't flower. But as long as those flowers are putting out, we've had green beans last a good month and a half, 2 months sometimes, that we're picking off the same ones. But we also do subsequent planting of green beans to maximize our harvest. So every 2 to 3 weeks, we will plant another row, 2 rows, another bed of green beans, so that if that first one kind of starts dying out, then we've got more coming on. And we'll be doing green beans for a month, 2 months, 3 months sometimes, just to get up the number, to put up the number of green beans that we eat. Our family, all collectively combined, probably eats 200 to 250 quarts of green beans a year, at least. So we put up a lot of green beans. Zucchini. The zucchini grows in the summer. You can absolutely shred it and freeze it. It's very, loses a lot of its water when you shred it and freeze it. So, they're like a really good addition to cakes and muffins and things that need a little bit more moisture and hydration. They add a lot of water. The thing about zucchinis is, unless you have a pest problem that comes in and takes your zucchini out, you really don't need that many zucchini plants. There's a reason that in the Midwest there's a running joke about Midwesterners never lock their doors unless it's zucchini season. And that just simply, is people like to share. And when you have too many zucchinis, you're giving zucchinis away to everybody. And so you really don't need a lot of zucchini plants. You just don't, unless you love zucchini. Zucchini, summer squash, the soft squashes. So, other things is tomatoes. Tomatoes, again, one note about tomatoes that I learned recently is that they actually need pruning and they produce better. So we're going to try pruning our tomatoes this year and see how that does. Check with me, in the fall, and we'll see how the pruning goes for tomatoes. You have tomatoes that are both eating tomatoes or sauce tomatoes. Think about what you're hoping to do with them and then research your tomatoes and plant accordingly. The last summer vegetable that I have is cucumbers. I don't like cucumber, plants. I don't like cucumber plants. They make me itchy. Tomato plants do too. It's a little annoying to have to wear a long sleeve shirt to go to the garden in the middle of the summer, but we do it. I remember when I was a child, I said, I am never, ever, ever growing cucumbers. Unless my husband loves pickles, I will never grow a cucumber. Guess what? Husband loves cucumbers and pickles. He thinks they're amazing. So we grow them. And it's all right. You say things when you're a kid. And then you eat your words. Because you're a kid. Anyway, fruit that's coming in the summer. We have blueberries. We have raspberries. Both of those things take work to establish on your own farm and property. I still don't have those established. So what I tend to do is raspberries, black raspberries especially are very wild. They're a wild fruit. So if you find somebody that you're like, hey, can I... do you know of any raspberries? Sometimes you can even find them on public trails. Just check your local laws. Make sure that you're not trespassing. But just ask. A lot of people have them along their fields. If they have a woods next to their field, a lot of times black raspberries are growing there. And if you're willing to wade through the woods, long socks, leggings, things to prevent ticks. But you can absolutely get raspberries. We have been known to go to farms, berry patches, and pick. My mom was a big pie maker, and there were some years that we picked gallons upon gallons upon gallons of black raspberries. Sometimes we got free, sometimes we went to a patch, sometimes we did both. We put up a lot of black raspberries. Blueberries are a little harder for my area to grow. I don't know very many people who have blueberries. Blueberries are one of those things that I will kind of go to a store. You can go to your local grocery store if you have a small store near you. I have access up into Michigan. So sometimes I'll go if we're traveling out to Jonathan's family out in Ohio. Sometimes I'll pick stuff up there. You can get them in multiple pound boxes. I'm trying to think what the poundage was. 10 pounds? 10 or 15 pounds, I think was the box, which is quite a few blueberries. And you're putting out blueberries are not cheap. Let's just be honest. But buying them in bulk and then freezing them in the same way, that is a really good way to do blueberries. From your garden, you can get watermelon and cantaloupe. Depending on how early you were able to get them out. If you were able to start seeds and get them out, you can start seeing watermelon as soon as the end of June. I think cantaloupe, or is it cantaloupe? Oh shoot, should have asked my brother. But it's July. If you get them right out and started right away, you can start seeing some of those show up in your garden. Watermelon, cantaloupe's one of those things you could absolutely do subsequent plantings too as well. My brothers work for a local farm, and they grow a lot of watermelon and cantaloupe. So I actually don't usually plant watermelon and cantaloupe myself. because I have access to it. They bring home ones that have like a hole in it or something that needs to be eaten soon or whatever. And so we get all the watermelon and cantaloupe that we need because they are able to bring some home as a perk of their job. But that would be the summertime is when you're going to start seeing that. I do know that people have froze it. I've never tried. It's one of those things that my family prefers it fresh. Watermelon, I've heard if you freeze it, again, kind of like the zucchini, the water content changes. So it's one of those things that if you want to put watermelon in like a slurry, there are some really good watermelon drinks out there. And if you want to like kind of make it into a slurry, I think they could be froze pretty well. But it's not going to be the same experience. So, just something to keep in mind. All right, fall. We're getting close to the end. Vegetables that you're going to see in the fall is your sweet corn. Your sweet corn is going to start showing up in the fall most of the time. Our local patch has sweet corn at the very beginning of June. They do some intensive maneuvers to do that and to be the first ones on the market with sweet corn. They do some intensive, like, row tunnels and all sorts of stuff. For the majority of home growers, sweet corn is going to show up in August. And it's all going to show up at the same time. And unless you do, again, subsequent plantings where you plant a couple of rows and then you plant a couple more rows and then you plant a couple more rows, you're going to get one push of sweet corn that you're going to get to eat fresh. And then the rest of it needs to be frozen. Canning sweet corn is usually not advised. If you choose to do it, I will not sit here and condemn you to do it. I just choose not to myself. Sweet corn is one of those things where it's hard to get the heat all the way through and to get a good, kill all the bacteria and make it shelf stable. I have heard of people that do it. I've heard a lot of people that have failed, where it's spoiled when they go to do it, or I think the danger of it spoiling on the shelf is if it doesn't smell and then you eat it, but it is indeed spoiled. That's the danger. It's up to you whether you want to take that risk. We just choose to freeze it. A lot of our freezer space is taken up with sweet corn. That's one of the big things that we freeze every single year. If you want to stagger your sweet corn harvest with some neighbors, you might be able to extend your fresh eating without having to buy. Sweet corn is one of those things that we enjoy, as a community getting together. Lots of the big families in this area will have a sweet corn day where the majority of the patch gets picked. And then everybody gets together and they shuck it and silk it and cut it off and freeze it. And you just spend the whole day doing it and everybody gets a portion of what's done. All right, let's run through the rest. Dry beans. If you let green beans, particularly pole beans, but if you let them go until they start getting dry and crispy, you get dry beans. One that's a way of saving seeds, which is not the topic of today's episode. But they're a bean that you can just put in a bag and put on the shelf. You don't even have to vacuum seal it, especially if you're going to use it within the year. If you want to vacuum seal it, it'll last a lot longer, I think. Correct me if I'm wrong if you have experience in that. I've just really put it in a Ziploc baggie and thrown it on the shelf. Dry beans then have to be rehydrated, but they are something that when it hits winter, you can take those dry beans and put them in cans and can them, so that you don't have to spend as much time rehydrating them. That is something that I would love to do in the future. Cabbage is usually something that gets harvested in the fall. They have a really long growing time. I think the package that I was just starting seeds with says 120 days or something. So cabbages are one of those things that they have take a long time to grow. But you can get your cabbages and put them up. Carrots, in the fall, if you do a planting in the summer, you also get a harvest of carrots in the fall. Potatoes usually are getting dug in the fall. They have a long growing time. And then your hard squashes, butternut squash, acorn squash, the things that have like a hard shell that do some keeping over the winter, those are going to be harvested in the fall. Fruit that gets harvested in the fall, at least in this area, is apples, peaches, pears, plums. If you don't have an orchard, maybe like check around with your neighbors. If it is a good apple year, a good fruit year, that is something that you can absolutely, like, people are giving them away. They have too many of them. Or that's like, a nominal amount. Another place you can look is there are fruit auctions, produce auctions. That's the word I wanted. So there's produce auctions. A lot of them that are near us is actually down in Missouri, so we do have to drive a couple of hours. But you can even like call in and like for a percentage, you can have someone do the bidding for you and get what you need, and then you can go down and get it. So if you're wanting to put up a bunch of that and you don't have access to it and you don't have any in like the local thing, your local Facebook group, you've checked and you don't see anything, that is also a place that you can get your apples, your peaches, your pears, your plums, and that sort of stuff. So then the winter hits, and anything that I didn't get canned and I chose to freeze until I could get it canned gets pulled out and you finish. Tomatoes is one of those things. A lot of times they hit so hot and heavy and you're already canning green beans so much that tomatoes are one of those things that I will stick some of them in the freezer and then pull them back out and let them thaw out, which already reduces some of that like water content. You don't have to do as much simmering when you're doing freezing of like when you're like making sauce and stuff. So freezing is actually a good way to help do that. You have to thaw them out and then you can like simmer them down and make a nice sauce. The only thing I haven't had great success with tomatoes and freezing is like stewing tomatoes, where you're like putting a whole tomato in. They kind of disintegrate once they've been frozen a little bit. I know some people do it. I don't love the way it is when it's done, but try it and see. Gardening and preserving and putting stuff up for your family, there are some sciences to it. There's like books on it. There's some really great canning recipes out there, several different books, all sorts of things. But finding out what you like and what your family really enjoys and what your family really wants to eat is kind of just a game that you get to play. And it's a fun game. Like if you can just relax and enjoy the process. Sometimes I get really uptight and I just want it to be perfect right away. But letting go. This year it's been kind of a discussion amongst me and my husband of holding everything with open hands. So that's the encouragement I get to pass on to you, is that as you're trying these new things and you're looking at this very long list that we just ran through, what do I want to grow this year? What do I want to try? Am I going to grow just enough for fresh, or am I going to grow more that I need for the rest of the year? As you try things, hold it with open hands. I've done so many pickle recipes that I opened up and dumped out to the pigs or the birds even kind of like it sometimes, but because they weren't good. And, it can be really frustrating because, like, I did all that work to harvest all those cucumbers and wade through the prickly plants and then handle the cucumbers and do all the work and then they weren't good. And that's just part of learning what your family really likes. And you will come across a recipe that you just love and that you will take to potlucks or, food gatherings, or take to a friend and they'll be like, this is amazing. Like, I need this. And you can become part of that sharing and that network that is such a blessing in the homesteading community. So in summary of today, food preservation throughout the year. I know this was long, but remember, if you're just getting started, don't feel like you have to do everything at once. Pick a few things your family already enjoys and build from there. Preserving food is a skill that takes time to learn, and each season is another opportunity to grow in it. Next week, we'll be switching gears a bit and talking about gathering the family together for the evening meal. So be sure to tune in for that. If you have any questions or want to share what you're preserving this season, send me an email at connect@simplylivingHomestead.com. I'd love to hear from you. Until next time, happy growing, happy preserving, and I'll see you in the next episode. Well, neighbor, before you head out, I just want to say how much I've loved spending this time with you. If you too enjoyed our time together, don't forget to give us a follow and leave a quick review on your favorite podcast player. It really helps more women like us find their way to a simpler, more joyful life. And hey, if you know someone who'd enjoy this episode, why not share it with them? Let's keep growing this circle of encouragement together. Oh, and don't forget to join my email list. I've got some free printables and weekly tips waiting for you to help you live a purposeful, balanced life, one rooted right in the heart and home. Thanks for being here, friend. You're doing a great job. I can't wait to chat again next week here at the Simply Living Homestead.